Rumble, and Twitch, and also Spotify. If you're a returning guest, welcome back. And don't forget to share. Today, we have a returning guest. Actually, a few. We have Static, located in Michigan. Air Force veteran, 6 years active, 4 years active reserves. Co founder of the Kindred Vets. We have DeBouge, 12 years Army, active duty, founder of Kindred Vets. We have Disease, good friend of mine, also a gamer and sometimes an inventor. Bouge, um, can you tell us what Kindred Vets is about?
Yeah, Kindred Vets is a motorcycle organization that we have. Myself, Static, and another fellow veteran brother of mine got together and created a motorcycle club for veterans that's a little bit different than most because we believe more of a tighter knit, family oriented type of setting. So we ride a lot together, socialize, and it's not only just to help other veterans out there with a lot of different things, right? Like everybody else is. But what we do is if you join our organization as a veteran that rides motorcycles, we take care of you first, right? Because every veteran out there, there's different levels of veterans, different types of, armed forces, there's all kinds. And we're also open to foreign veterans as well, whether they are enemy or friend, right? And no other club that I know of does that. So we take care of each other first. We all have some issues, whether it be mental and psychological, or we just, I need a buddy or I need help with something. So we do that. So we instill that if I call you a brother, I want to mean it. There's too many people walking around here wearing patches and other organizations that's not even bikers, but all kinds of different things that call each other brothers, but they're really not, right? Just because we shake hands when we see you here and there, but if you're there when I need you, then I can call you brother and vice versa. So that's our main goal because I believe if you have a strong community of veterans, then the stronger that community of veterans is, that organization of veterans are, then they can go out there and be more effective in assisting and helping the community and other veterans, especially the veteran community, which seems to be one of the communities that need us the most. And for us is, I always say this, I don't care what kind of degree you have, I don't care what kind of schooling you have, what kind of experience you've had. If you're not a veteran, you just don't fucking know. And nobody knows veterans better than veterans, hands down. So we have combat veterans in our group. Only combat veterans are allowed to talk to veterans with PTSD that have PTSD due to combat. Now, if you have a veteran that has PTSD issues with anything else, well, then any of our veterans can talk to them, right? And we do a lot for the children in the community, Christmas, stuff like that. Our main focus is veterans, though, and uh, you know, there's a lot of veterans out there that's in homes. We give free jackets, free food. We spend money on widows that need it. A family lost a home. We do all kind of stuff. But our biggest thing is camaraderie, socializing, getting out there and showing everybody that hey, we served. We may not be in the military anymore, but we're still here, and we're still soldiers. We just do it in a different way. You know.
Yep, sounds good. And if you're a veteran or currently serving in the military, look us up. Hit me up and I'll point you in the right direction. I'm also part of the club, and you know, it's one of the best things I've ever joined. So you have that brotherhood outside of the military. All right. So Static was telling me that you wanted to talk about a little more military tonight.
Yeah. I'm a bit of an asshole when it comes to the military and the way things go, so I'm all for it.
So, Static, got any topics for booze that we're gonna get this started?
Um, I don't know. Everything I can think of that comes to mind is a bit too graphic for public consumption.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask me anything. If I think if it's something that might cause some issues, I just won't comment on
Hmm.
it.
Yeah,
Too many
uh,
sensitive motherfuckers out there today.
There really
for
is.
sure. Yep.
I can ask you something if you want. It's gonna be off the
Shoot,
wall though. Crazy. No, it's not crazy. Um,
fuck
do
it.
you remember when Ebola first came out? Like, well, not first came out, but like we had a epidemic happen, then it went away, and then another epidemic. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
It was like around 2009 ish, I think.
somewhere around there, maybe. Yeah,
Okay.
ish.
When the first one happened, do you remember? I remember this. I remember reading articles and seeing it on news and stuff that two countries came out with like a cure for it. And I believe, I know one of them they said was Russia and the other was, oh, I can't remember the other one. Italy? I can't remember the second one. But I remember when the second time the outbreak happened, I remember asking one of my parents, didn't they make a cure for that? And nobody seems to remember it. So it's like a, um, what do you call that effect? Like
Mandela.
Mandela effect.
Mandela, that's it. Do you remember anything about that? Because I remember they had developed some type of antivirus for it.
I do. I also remember. The Ebola, depending on when you heard the news, may or may have not started in Houston, Texas, right? From someone that allegedly came from overseas on a vacation or something like that, right? Same story. You might be have some, might not be exact story, but it's all the same story. Somebody brought it from somewhere else. Now remember this, right? So I remember this. I pay attention, and I'm not a sheep, so I don't purposely forget shit just so to match the agenda. But I remember when Ebola came out, and they were trying to scare everybody, saying it's deadly. You're gonna die if you have it. We got we got vaccines for it. Everybody, go ahead and get in panic like they did with COVID and all that. And then a lot of political stuff happened right after that because it was like, you know,
Cover up.
we need to do something that we don't want y'all to know, so we're gonna divert your attention somewhere else, like they
Yeah,
normally do. And then all of a sudden it went away,
yeah,
right?
that's
So there was no mandatory vaccines push like it was with COVID, and all that. But it all of a sudden just went away. The most deadliest virus that we know of in modern times at the time was the Ebola, right? Coming
yeah,
from Africa, and all of a sudden it disappeared, kind of
Out of
like
the
these
media
drones
everywhere.
recently.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. The first
Yeah,
time it came out, it's like everywhere, all over the news. You know, they were talking. Oh, they were so worried about it, and then it disappeared. And then the second time it came out, that's when they had that one guy. It was a he was one of the doctors that was over there that they transported to Houston, who was supposedly still had it. And I remember that because everybody was saying, "Well, why the hell did you bring him here?" And then that one disappeared too. So
it
you know,
seems to be a trend.
yeah. And I'm wondering if it's kind of like the UFO thing, like when one of the politicians who's really high up gets in trouble, all of a sudden UFOs pop out of everywhere. So I don't know if that's what it was or if it was. I'm assuming there was some actual outbreak and they were probably just blowing it out of proportion. But I do
I mean, I
remember
think so
them
too.
saying that somebody developed an antivirus for it, and I can't find any information about that anymore. I
In my opinion, with the population that we have in the world and technology we have, I believe that there's just about a cure for everything, including cancer. And the cures are controlled by the people that want to control population, want to control an agenda, want to control movement and stuff like that. It's all about control for whatever reason. It starts with control. That's the key element, whether it's finances, whether it's destroying a country, whether it's racial divide, whether it's fear tactics for other things, whether it's you name it, the list can go on forever. It's all about control, and they can't use guns to control us because this is America, right? And there's all kind of constitutional laws that govern that, but they can use other things, bioweapons, biochemical is a big thing because it can easily do, there's a monkey flu, there's a swine flu, bird flu, COVID, and any of the COVIDs that over the years since the 1940s and everything else. So Ebola, whatever, right? They can just say, okay, well, this is bad. It's a new strand. Oh shit, watch out. You have to take this shot. That's going to make me a lot of money. I'm going to get with the other politicians want to make money. We're going to force it. And and then all the other politicians who want to get into it or world leaders and elites, I should say, they'll use that for their own agendas. So it might have started off with let's make a bunch of our elite cultic parties money. And then somebody else says, well, I don't really need the money, but I could definitely use some control because I need, to lessen the population in a certain area or sway a population to believe a certain thing for this election or whatever the case is. So
Yeah.
it's biological and psychological warfare at the same time.
So you
That's
think
just
that
my opinion.
there's, well, I agree with you, and I think there's something to that as well. That the elites or the oligarchs or whatever you want to call them, who are actually running things behind the scenes, um, they play with people's lives as if they're just pawns, something to be used, which is a key element in sociopathy, right? Um, and I wanted to get on the cancer thing too, because there was something about cancer that a guy I knew, very smart, he was a physicist, knew. He told me it, um, and it kind of has to do with the Rife. I think it's a Rife machine. You know what I'm talking about? Static. It was a guy who came out with a machine, and it would tune to a certain frequency. It sounded like hocus pocus, like pseudoscience, right?
But
But
it actually proven to work. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
it was within the past like 5 years they proved that frequency can kill cancer cells, maybe certain types or whatever. And
Yeah,
I
I
was told
remember
this years
something like
ago.
that.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said I remember them talking about something like that, but it was very
Yeah,
short.
yeah, they discredited the guy very quickly. Like, I mean, demonized him and had all these things come up and all these studies saying, "Oh, he's wrong. Look at this study," like they do with everything that probably works. Um, I swear I'll get to the point. Um, the I brought that up because the physicist told me that um, stem cells are similar to cancer cells. Like they're very similar, and a lot of times cancer cells come from stem cells, and they have a unique property in that they spin. And the reason they spin is so that the you have a whole bunch of proteins floating around in your bloodstream, in your plasma, and they spin so that those proteins don't have a chance to link to them, so that they become um, a cell of that region unless they're needed. I don't know the exact mechanics behind that, but he basically said they spin, and if one were to tune to that frequency of that spin and make them slow down or stop, that then the body would recognize the cancer cell and it would be able to fight it. And I listened to him and I'm like, this sounds legit. And then a few years, quite a few years later, because I talked to him 20 years ago probably, there was a study that said, hey, it looks like uh, frequency can help to combat cancer. Yeah, you pulling up Rafe? Yeah,
Yeah, it was Dr. Albert Abrams.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not
yeah,
saying the Rife machine works or it doesn't work. I don't know. I remember hearing about it, and they discredited the guy. I mean, a lot of pseudoscience stuff, like out there stuff, they don't care about. They may say, "Oh, it's just pseudoscience," but they demonize this guy, um, similar to the way they demonized Doctor. What's his name? The one over COVID. Oh God, I'm so horrible with names. Malone. That's his name, Robert Malone. And I'm like, the only time they usually do that is if the guy's onto something. But have you ever um, seen anything about that and about the frequencies and how those interactions can cause different effects? Not necessarily just curing cancer, but uh, I don't know if you know or know any other conspiracy or whatever that deals with that. But
Well, sound frequency in the Chinese culture has been something they use for a long time in dealing with health, right? In all in all kinds of different type of health, from mental health to physical health. Of course, with today's big pharmaceutical companies, if something does work that's free and easy or very cheap, they're definitely not going to promote it because they don't make money
Yeah.
off of it. But, I mean, I've heard about sound frequencies being used in all kinds of different things, from moving objects to breaking things to healing the body and healing the mind and everything. So apparently, frequency is important. Matter of fact, one of the biggest evidence that nobody really realizes about sound frequencies of any sort is why do humans of any origin, any culture around the world, why do we like music? Okay, so there's obviously our bodies need some type of you know synchronized frequencies, and we've created music out of it too. So, uh, a lot of people say certain songs, certain melodies, and certain types of beats put you in different moods. And it might not just be the words itself. You can listen to classical music with not a single word and be at peace. You can listen to bass music and get hyped the fuck up, right? So yeah, yeah, I think frequencies, period, especially sound frequencies, is has a lot to do with things, and but they can't put it in a bottle and sell it. So you know, and we're not allowed to have all the knowledge that we need to have of it because we only know what we're being told and educated on through the systems. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just that's why I think about it.
They can't make money off the cure.
Oh
That's
no,
right.
but they can make money off of making you sick though.
Oh, yeah. That's why every time you go to the doctor and you have high blood pressure, here's some medicine. Well, that medicine's causing me to feel this way. Well, here's some more medicine. Yeah, it's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah, they treat the symptoms and not the
You ever
problem.
sat at the house by yourself one night and you started drinking and you're like, I'm just gonna get fucked up. I'm just gonna drink, right? Try doing that with no music and see how different you act. Okay. So if I'm sitting at the house alone, I'm gonna turn on some sad ass fucking music, and I'm gonna drink, and the more alcohol is in my system, and the sadder the songs are, the more it's my life and that's my emotions, and now all of a sudden I'm a crying little bitch, because the music made me do it. Try turning off the stereo and drinking by yourself.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not the same.
that's like the children. They did a study a long time ago about the children who listen to classical music tended to have higher IQs and higher test scores.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah, I've
music
seen that.
heals. I believe sound heals. You know, I wish that the the knowledge that was lost wouldn't be lost, and that would be something. All these natural remedies from all kinds of different sources, from what was naturally grown, not man-made, but just was here already. To the type of
Yeah,
diets that we've had. The more modern we've got, the more we've progressed. We have more cancer today than we had 10 years ago.
yeah,
More cancer 10 years ago they had 50 years ago. In the 1800s, actually, right before that, in world industrialization is whenever you started seeing cancer as it being in recorded history, and that was because of industrialization. So you had different chemicals and compounds and elements being pulled from the ground, and different ores and processes and stuff like that. And that was just from you know touch and inhalation and stuff like that, and ingestion. Once we started putting chemicals into our foods, the percentage growth of cancer exploded, right? So why did people not have cancer way back in the day? You know, I'm talking about way back in the day, you know what I'm saying? And why we have it so much now.
Mm.
So I
How
think all
about
that ties
obesity?
into things, and obesity as well. I mean, people lived healthier, and when people say, well, people live longer today than they did, back then, but they're talking about back then as being recent history. They don't realize that back then, before globalization, not industrialization, globalization, if you go back before that, people actually lived a very long time and they lived healthy, you
Yeah,
know.
what about Okinawa? They
But once
still live
everybody,
to 100 and something in Okinawa because they don't eat the crap we eat
Okinawa
over here.
is one of the islands that is the original people of Japan, which are not, you know, or which are not Oriental, is Okinawans, right? And a lot of them now mixed with the Oriental, which was China, is their history, which is all the Orient's history is China. But there were some type of Polynesian, Micronesian islanders,
I
and the
didn't know
people in
so.
Okinawa's culture hasn't been as diluted as the rest of Japan, and they live a lot
Yeah,
longer and a lot healthier. You know,
yeah. The food they have there too is a lot of it is very different. If you look at some of their produce that they produce, it's not your normal, you know, corn you get from Walmart or potatoes you get from Walmart. It's really some neat stuff. They actually have. I was telling Doc about this. The Okinawan sweet potatoes, they're purple, and they're some of the best potatoes as far as nutrients and everything. But not just that, they taste amazing. Like I grew some like last year. Some of the best tasting sweet potato. Don't need any butter on it at all. You can eat it just like it is. Not raw, of course, but cook it just like it is. I was like, no wonder they live forever. I'd live forever too if I ate this stuff. Is good. But they do grow them in Hawaii, I believe. They call them Hawaiian purple as well, but they're originally from Okinawa. And I just the produce they have in other countries, it's some amazing stuff that we could probably grow here, but nobody does it. I don't know why they don't do it. Probably because
it's
it's
all
good
about
for
money.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
if you look at ingredients of food sold anywhere else in the world, like a box of Fruit Loops in Germany compared to a box of Fruit Loops stateside, the list of ingredients in Germany is like this big, as to where the list of ingredients in the States is like that big.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's
It's we was talking about the Indians too. I wonder how much like Native American medicine and the unique techniques and everything they used got lost, you know, to time. You know, I'm sure some of it still, some people still probably know it, but I'm wondering, you know, how much we lost and you know, what they could do with the just herbs that are on the land itself here in America.
Well, I mean, so I know a lot of it from my dad. My dad's in his 70s, and he uses a lot of Native American medicine, self-grown. He goes to a wholesale store or whatever and buys actual fresh, plants and whatnot. And he's pretty healthy for an old geezer, man. And he, um, it's not gonna, help with some things, but like I say, I believe that what was put on Earth, everything that was put on Earth is here for a reason. That wasn't man-made, right? Everything. If it's a plant, there was a reason for it, whether it was to eat, whether it was to poison something, whether it was to have medicinal powers or whatnot. Every single thing that wasn't man-made is here for a reason, and the indigenous cultures of every land back in the day uh, knew that, and a lot of that knowledge is being not
Lost.
lost but destroyed.
Yeah.
You know,
Because you can't make money off it.
can't
Most
can't
of my
control the
knowledge
population.
comes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Oh, you know.
He was just saying it's to control the population.
Oh, yes, yeah. Like we talked about,
Yeah.
everything is controlled of those people. They want nothing better than to do. I mean, they have nothing else to do. When you have billions of dollars, what else do you have to do but to control people with it? You know. But
Yeah.
most of my knowledge of herbs, and I have an extensive knowledge, by the way, and it all comes from Red Dead Redemption. So I know way better and more than most people do about herbs because Red Dead Redemption has taught me a lot.
And people say video games are bad for you.
I
Right.
know. Shit, I wouldn't know anything about Indian tobacco or feverfew or carrots without Red Dead Redemption. It's actually kind of neat how much they did like get right and detail in that game. Though I'm making a joke, but it is actually pretty cool. But yeah, the Indians were the first ones to use white willow bark for like headaches and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
There is
Put it
American
in your mouth,
ginseng,
chew on
which
it.
you hardly see. Huh?
Put the bark in your mouth,
Uh,
chew on it, put it in the side.
yeah, the Native American, well, the Southern, I don't know if you call them, the South Americans used Palo Alto or Palo Azul. Um, it's the wood. You put it in with water, and the water turns blue. I don't know if you ever seen that. They drink that down there.
You know, somebody has to answer a question for me because sassafras. I know you're familiar with sassafras, right? So, like growing up, you could take the root, boil it, make tea. You could take the leaves, dry them out, and you make filet for your gumbo, right? A recent report had come out and was telling people, you need to stop using sassafras. It's a cancer. It causes cancer, stuff like this, And I'm like, man, I know people for years. They died of old age. They didn't die of cancer. So
Yeah.
tell me, I wonder if that's like a scare tactic,
Or the roots picking up chemicals that they put in the ground and made it dangerous. That's the only way.
So, I have it all around here.
Yeah.
Man, I could make filet all day. I can make the sassafras tea.
You got that Yopon holly too over there.
Yeah.
Did we lose Booge?
Did he freeze?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says connecting on my end.
Yeah.
Hmm. It just has him froze. Oh,
He
lost him.
dropped out.
He'll come back.
Boudreaux needs that good gaming internet like the rest of us.
Yeah, right.
I thought he left because he got sick of me.
Oh, Boudreaux lives in Port Barry, so he's got terrible internet.
Yeah, dude, I dealt with terrible internet for most of my life. It sucked.
Yeah.
AT&T 2 megasecond download. Oh my god, it's horrible.
I finally got 1 gig, but I still have the Starlink though.
Yeah, I got the same as you got. It still has its issues every now and then, but it's way better than what I had. Did you test your upload?
Yeah, it's about the same as the download.
Yeah. I had a problem with Windows. It would not allow me to go over a certain amount upload. Like I test with my iPad, and the iPad would show the proper thing. But I test with the Windows 10 PC. One PC would say only got a like 60 meg upload, and the other PC would say 140 meg upload. And I'm like, So I contacted them to find out what's wrong, and they said it's not on their end, and it wasn't. It's something to do with Windows, and I never did figure it out. There was a thing I was going to bring up, and I cannot remember what it was now. I'm going to wait till Booch comes back. Oh,
There it is.
did you?
Bringing him back.
I think I'm back.
There you are.
I guess black suits didn't like what we were saying.
No,
I got a message saying your view may not be private. Basically, what he said. And then I got
Your FBI agent logged into your stuff and was watching you.
Yeah. Yeah, it kicked you.
So, what else did you want to talk about there? If you want, I'll tell you my theory of the moon itself.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead. Oh,
I'm
go ahead, Stan.
to Doc earlier. Has anybody else had the Mandela effect just really mess with their head recently? Or am I the only one
No,
who's
I don't let it. I don't let it because I think people are fucking stupid.
I'm probably fucking stupid, but completely fucked with my head.
About as far as what?
Okay, so the cornucopia and Fruit of the Loom and Sinbad playing Shazam, like those have all been proven to be true, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I heard
Yeah,
one
it was
the
an
other,
old movie.
and it was South America has been moved it's not in the same spot it was fucking 40 years ago. And now, where I grew up knowing South America to be is totally fucking different than what it is on Google Maps and what it is on his fucking map in front of me from 2020. And I never realized it was different until someone fucking brought it up in a damn YouTube short, and it completely fucked with my head.
Is it because most of it moved into the United States illegally?
No, not people, geographically.
Yeah, no, I hadn't. I had to look into that one. I hadn't seen it.
They told me
Maybe it's all those people aren't weighing it down as much anymore, and it floated back up a bit.
that's entirely possible. But it wasn't. And I've actually found a paper map from late 70s, early 80s, and it is different. So,
Which areas are different? Is it mainly like coastline, or is it
okay.
the drawn parts, like the country borders, or yeah? Let's see.
Yeah, so you see how South America kind of comes up right here?
Yeah, is in line with Greenland. Yeah.
Yeah. On that old map, it's not. On the old map, the edge of America right here comes up about right here.
So it's swinging to the west now.
Yeah, and where it connects, like Panama and stuff, is more up here.
Have you done a Google Earth view of it?
Yeah, and it like that one. But that old fucking paper map that I found, it doesn't look like that.
I'm still here. I just shut my camera off for a second.
So you're saying that the one on your wall is how it's all like how you know it to be, and then
That's how it's supposedly changed. The copyright on the wall is 2020.
okay.
The map from I think it's copyrighted 1981. It was at the library, so I don't have it here.
So you're saying the newer one, South America, is higher up? Like it's rising?
It's not.
Like it took Viagra.
Oh, look. Let's see.
It decided to do like you said earlier and just float off. About 3,000 miles.
I'll have to look more into that because I don't. I haven't heard that myself, but you roll in different circles than I do. Let me see if I can pull some up.
Yeah, I was trying to find something myself.
I searched the internet for 2 hours one day. I mean, you can ask Boot. I fucking texted him early in the morning going, what the fuck?
I'm about to go to my mom's house and look. Before the internet was available to everybody in the 80s, if we wanted to
Yeah.
Google, our way of Googling was Encyclopedia Britannica.
That's what I
Yeah.
went.
She has the entire Encyclopedia Britannica set from the 1980s at her house. So next time I go there, I'm gonna look at a map and see.
Yeah.
The real question is, or a couple questions: is it moving? And if it's not moving, why are they saying it's moving?
Well,
And I can go all kinds of theories about that.
Continental shift.
but that's a
That's
lot.
2 feet a year,
Yeah,
or 2 feet every 20 years or something.
that's not 2,000 miles.
Yeah. Unless it's
Well, the same thing they're saying about all the ice glaciers melting and the water rising and all this other stuff. I mean, look at Plymouth
This-
Rock.
I
Has
think
it
what
moved?
with is the multi-universe thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
the only thing that I could logically think of that may cause it is that some maps, I know some maps, older ones were done, as a flat map, and some of them are more of an effect to make a flat map appear round like the Earth actually is. So that's the only thing I could figure that may be why some maps would have the disparity. Because it's hard to put a round structure on a flat square. I'm sorry.
Well, why don't you look at pick a town or city or country that is directly in line with a line of latitude from 1970s or something like that, and go to the same country or city or town today and see if it's on the same line of latitude or longitude, I should say.
Yeah, I read somebody said that the time zones have changed too. I hadn't been able to verify that.
Yeah, I didn't know where to draw the lines on early maps, and you didn't have satellites back then. Well, with lines of latitude, longitude were a type of measurement that was used in nautical measurements back in the day. So,
Yeah, but they didn't have Sharpies either.
Yeah, you're right. I'm still confused on how they was able to do some of those things back then. But
Yeah.
was it a guess? Yeah.
I mean, it
Had
was
more
pretty
time on their hands.
defined, though. Like, even if they'd done it by ship and plotted their maps, they were pretty detailed back in the day. Like,
Yeah.
compared to now, send some guys out there. I bet they can't draw the first map. You got people that'll get lost in their own yard.
One of those 50 yards in the woods, swimming and get lost.
That was the weird thing for me is I grew up knowing South America to be off those early 80s maps of where
You
they
say-
had
He mentioned continental drift, but according to what we're told about Pangea and all that, and the plate shifting with continental drift, then South America should be going the other way and not returning from where it literally came from. So the what they're telling us is that at one time it was one large landmass with all these different plates, and when they separated over time, South America or the Western Hemisphere went that way. So basically, I'm going to say towards the Pacific, right? We'll just to give it a reference. If that's the case, then it should have moved 2,000 miles towards the Pacific and not 2,000 miles back towards the Atlantic.
Yeah.
You know,
Unless it is being pushed back by something else, like because I don't know if they know exactly how the plates function, if they continue to go that same direction all the time, or if there's maybe a shift to where they'll stop because there's maybe more weight on one side, or they've pulled enough material under the other one that it'll push it back the other way, because that's possible too. But I don't know if they really know, whether they're always going to be, going that same direction or not. But that still doesn't explain that large of a shift in movement. The only thing I can find is that somebody said it appears like it's because it's a flat map versus they corrected it. The old maps were flat maps, and in order to make it more realistic, since we are on a globe, they shifted it to appear in a better location as far as geographically for a circular globe. So they must extend the ocean out or something in some parts on some flat maps, generously to accommodate for it being flat versus a globe. And that's the only explanation I've been able to find.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
All I'm seeing is the one that you showed us on your wall, Static. I cannot find like the old one.
Yeah. I found the old one. I got like a black and white looking picture of it, and it shows it more the
To the west.
tip of the tip of like Brazil is kind of under where Maine is at more than
Can you share it?
yeah, I can share it. Hold on.
I hope so.
Let me
Weather thing, honestly.
What is it, Static?
I said I'd hope he'd be able to share it, considering the other pictures.
Oh yeah,
what
right.
pictures. I don't know what you're talking about.
He's talking about his girlfriend.
Why is this thing not working? I clicked the thing. Oh, that's why.
So
Earthquake. Alright, so you see how it's like Africa is more underneath like Canada and like right where Maine and stuff would be. But I think that's because we are trying to, or the newer maps are trying to adjust for it being a circle versus a, being on a flat. Yeah. But anytime you do a flat, when it's a circular thing, you're going to have to stretch some areas and shrink some areas. I think that's why. But they should have told people about the change.
I remember it being more underneath.
Yeah, me too. I do remember that. I guess it's not going to be exact anyway, being that it's not a globe anyway. If it's a flat map, it's not going to be an exact thing. I'm back. This is where I live.
okay, you're on the other side. No.
I didn't know
No,
Australia was that small. We could squash them.
there's definitely a lot of psyops involved. I know the booze. I know you know what psyops. Well, it's definitely they definitely use it in today's society. And Static, you know psyops too.
I don't fall for them. I can
I don't
see
know.
a
It's hard to
psyop a
believe
mile away.
anything today in today's society. I mean, what's the right news channel? What's the, you know, what's correct these days? What? How can you search and you know it's the correct information?
Yep.
Well, see, that's the problem with these days is that, especially I see the younger people, um, they think they're smarter than you or know more than you because they Googled it or they heard it on the news or something like that. And the problem with that is who's controlling your education?
Hmm.
So whoever's
Yeah.
controlling your knowledge is going to be able to influence the way you think about whatever the topic is.
Yep.
You know, there's a reason why former President Obama passed the law to allow propaganda for elections and stuff like that. Right? That was never allowed, and a lot of these people that's involved in all these things now own all the news stations. You know, the major news channels, CNN, and all that. Um, they all have stakes in that. So they passed this law that says that they can control propaganda
That
for
wasn't that the
elections and
Smith-Mund
political,
Act or something?
something like
Am I
that.
thinking right?
You know, so now people turn on the news and they just automatically believe, whatever they see, because if it's on the news, it must be true, and that's the way people believe. You know, and some people don't want to see. Some people do not. You can put the truth in their face, and they
Yeah.
still are going to have an opinion that's not going to change. You know,
Yep.
I had a discussion with somebody the other day. I'll try not to get into the topic too much of it, but if if a certain group of people of any group has a stereotype, the stereotype is largely due to the majority of the actions of people in that particular group, no matter what group it
Hmm.
is. Not all, right? I mean, because there's racial stereotypes as well. I mean, meaning like something that was made up, right? But we see what goes on in the world today, and we have a problem. There's all kind of problems, but we'll just pick one subject. There's a problem with things going on. So we recognize the problem, we see the problem, they know that it's a problem, but they refuse to fix the problem, right? Because if you try it, because then they would have to admit to being wrong. They'd have to admit to doing the wrong things and believing the wrong ways and stuff like that. So we're being basically forced, tie our hands behind our backs and just allow things to be the way it is because we were being indoctrinated to not say nothing because if you do, then you're wrong. And people are like, well, how are you going to tell me how to think? Or you, and this and that. It's not. I'm not telling you how to think. You open your eyes and your ears and you live and you see what's going on. And even amongst my own, I can tell you, I admit there's some shit that it's true what people say, right? Within certain uh you know populations of us, as humans. I mean, I always tell people this. I've told Aaron this before too, and I used to I made this up when I was in the military a long time ago because there's three different types of people out there. There used to be two that everybody believes: pessimist and an optimist, right? There's also a realist, and that's what I believe. I,
That's me.
I try to be a realist. So an optimist says, you know, the glass is you know half full. A pessimist says, well, it's half empty. A realist knows that it's both half full and half empty. They just know you have a half a glass of water. You can call it half empty, half full, but you still have a half a glass of fucking water, right?
Yep.
And that's how I
Or
believe
half a
things.
glass of air.
Or air, right? There's I have the cupcake theory on life. I used to tell my soldiers back in the day, the cupcake theory on life. All right. So here's my thing. I always say it is what it is, right? And that's not to blow nothing off. I actually mean those words the way in the definitions of every single word. It is what it is, right? If you showed me a hammer, it's a hammer. You know why? It is what it is. Fucking hammer. So here's my thing of cupcake theory. If I take a cupcake, put frosting on top and a cherry on it, and set it on the table, and I get some shit, some real shit from somebody's ass, and put it in a cupcake wrapper and put frosting on that and a cherry on top and set it on the table and it looks exactly like the other cupcake, you're not going to know the difference between the two. But you take a bite and you're going to really find out soon which one's the cupcake, which one's the shit. So the point of it is this: no matter how much you decorate anything, it is what it is. You can't cover up shit and call it fucking candy. Shit's gonna be shit. You can't camouflage it. You can't dress it up. The core is still gonna be shit. And that's the same thing with society and the things that's going on in the world today. I don't give a shit how much people try to, you know, sensitize things, how they try to make you believe that it's not the way it is, or, what these people do this because of it. No, the fuck they don't. If you're shit, you're shit. Don't put a fucking frosting and cherry on top of it and call yourself a cupcake. You're still a piece of shit. So accept the fact that you're a piece of shit and live your life as a piece of shit, right? So in physically speaking, but as humans, we all have the option to make a decision, no matter what culture you are, what ethnicity or race you, or no matter where you're from in the world. We all have moral issues. We all have moral knowledge, and we know exactly what we're doing, whether it's right or wrong. Period.
Yeah.
You don't have to be taught what's right or wrong. You know it. It's instilled in us in our very fiber. We were born. If you have a normal brain in your body and you're not mentally handicapped, you know what's right or wrong, right? Especially if you live in a society, unless you're born by yourself and live out in the middle of nowhere with no interaction with humans. But anybody that has any culture of any sort knows what's right and wrong. You know if you're doing something wrong. You know that if my family, or say let's say kindred vets, I'm just going to use them as kindred vets. We're not like this, but what if kindred vets went to bars all the time, and every time we went, picked a fight with somebody, got in fights? What if we was flying up and down the highways at 120 miles an hour and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think people are going to think of us? They're going to
Shit
know that, hey,
bags.
those guys, they're shit bags. They fly down the highway, they go to bars and they fight all the time. And then you have somebody that says, well, I'm in kindred vets and I don't do it. I don't give a flying fuck what you do. But the masses of you, the highest percentage of you are doing it. So therefore, kindred vets is going to get that title.
Hmm.
And that's the same thing with every society on this earth. If the majority who of whatever society is being the topic of the person society, whatever they're doing as a majority, the majority is going to speak volumes way higher than the minority, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't judge a person as an individual, but you have to judge a group. You have no choice to judge a group. We're all part of some type of group of all kinds of things, right? Not just race or ethnicity, but I mean, it could be culture, it could be clubs, it could be whatever, right? We're all part of something, and whatever the majority of whatever group that you're in is doing, that's what everybody's going to see you as.
Yeah.
So you have to say, well, why does people view us in the way they view us? Well, why the fuck you think? So if everybody's viewing you a certain way, then maybe you need to go ahead and change some shit about yourself. But they're not going to because we're told that that's not the right thing to do. We should accept it. You know, bullshit. How about you be a human? How about know what's right and wrong? How about know when you're a fuck up or not and fix yourself? And
Yeah,
unfortunately, humans don't fix themselves as a whole. They can only fix themselves as individuals. And the only way you're going to fix anybody is through indoctrination, right? Wars and violence and stuff like that. Is how you control people's movements and their actions and the way they do things, you know. And no one's going to just wake up one day and say, and I have this conversation all the time. So you're telling me that you notice this goes on, you talk shit about it, you say you don't want to go to certain places because of it, but if I say something about it, then I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't belong to that
mm,
particular group.
yeah,
That is it's bullshit,
yeah. I know
you know?
what you're talking about.
So
The
oh yeah.
going back
Yeah.
to your comment on the like oh shoot, my brain just froze on uh the stereotypes. Sorry, uh, stereotypes aren't always a bad thing. Like just because a large portion of a group does a certain thing, it's not a bad thing. You see, I think people have gotten
Right.
confused with differences, like someone being different or having something different, as being a bad thing, and it's not.
Right.
Like it's not a bad thing unless they're like doing something horrible. Then it's not a bad thing. Just because a certain group likes a certain type of food or likes a certain type of dance or this and that, it's a difference that should be celebrated. And for some reason, when people bring up the stereotypes, it's they think it's meant to be in a demeaning way, but it's not. It doesn't have to be viewed that way. Can it be? Yes, but it doesn't have to be. But I think a lot of the issues that you're talking about can be solved, but it has to start with the young and the youth and giving them a future, which they currently don't have. They you look at the way things are right now, and you can't afford a home. No one can afford a home on a regular job. Even a six-figure job, it's hard to find a place. Uh, and they wonder why these kids are going around doing the things they do and going to malls and going to schools and you know doing what they do because you didn't give them a future. You took it from them because the people want to be greedy and have more for themselves than everyone else. Just like with the tariffs, right? A normal person, a normal everyday working man doesn't care about tariffs because they understand more about the economy than these people on the news who are screaming it's going to cause things to go up and all this stuff because they understand that it's going to bring manufacturing back to the US and it's going to make the dollar stronger, right? But all these news stations are screaming every 5 seconds about how horrible the tariffs are. Oh my God, it's 9/11 because of tariffs, and it's all propaganda. It's all that psyop crap, right? I mean, all the president's trying to do is make a fair playing field for the U.S. and bring manufacturing back. That should be wanted by every person in this country. But yet you've got every single media station screaming how, oh, it's horrible and horrible. But it all starts too back with, like I said, education, because one thing, you need to bring those manufacturing jobs back so the kids have something to do and somewhere to work and have a future. And if you get the dollar back up to its strength that it was, then they can afford homes again. Give them a future. But also, I was thinking about this earlier. The no one, the whole education system obviously needs to be revamped. But I think we need to go a step further, and see that maybe certain groups of people don't learn the same way, right? So, yeah, yeah. It just
So,
should say freaking crazy on there is what it should say.
like you were talking about the housing market, you
Yeah.
see, not to cut you off, but
No, go ahead.
before you get too far, so say 1970s, right? Y'all can see this? This is 1970, October 1970. The median home price was 25,000. It kind of moved $25,051. Okay, so the adjusted price for as far as it goes is if today $204,000. So back in 1970, the house would have been $25,000. Today, 200,000.
Yeah, but it doesn't exactly say the size of the house, but that's probably like a
No,
normal,
it's just an average.
yeah, few bedroom house with a couple bath or something. 200 some thousand right now won't buy you a one bedroom house with one bathtub. Like it's freaking crazy. You may
Well,
be able to
it's not
buy it.
that
Oh, go ahead.
if so, the whole supply and demand and all this other stuff, there's some validity in the way people think about it. But there's also some false processes to it. So if a house cost 25,000 in 1970, what was the average income of 1970? What was the dollar worth in 1970, right? And
Yep.
what was the economy like in 1970? So we are living a little bit behind the dollar in comparison, but it's not like minimum wage in 1970, let's just say is $3.50. The minimum wage didn't stay $3.50 and the house became $200,000 over the past 40 years, right?
No.
The income also rose as well, you know. So some of that has get the fuck off me. Damn dogs. But so the only problem, the biggest problem with this, there's a few problems, but one of the biggest problems, just as far as money wise and economics, is they rose the price, the dollar, right? So let's say they rose minimum wage. They didn't keep up with the price of things. They brought prices, they brought prices up, but the prices increase on things, the things that the cost increase doesn't match in the percentage wise as the money that you're making, or the cost of the dollar, what it's worth, as it did
Yeah,
back in 1970 and before, right? So
Yep.
yeah.
it was
Well,
very small. It just went up, and they did it on purpose. I think, yeah, now if we all made the same amount of money as we did in 1970, and the prices went up, but our income didn't, it'd be a whole lot different.
yeah. The problem is once it goes
But I
up,
will
it
go
never
back
goes
to
down. You know what I mean?
right.
The minimum wage will never go down. It will go back up because no one wants to make less, even if the dollar is stronger, right? So let's say we took the economy from 1970, right? The where, the housing was $25,000, right? What was the strength of the dollar? If the strength of the dollar was still as strong as it was in 1970, now our minimum wage, you'd be making a lot. You'd be doing well. Uh, but we can't. You're not going to sit there and tell people, well, the dollar's higher now. It's worth more now, so we're going to have to drop your wages down. That's never going to happen. So every time you jump minimum wage up, it stays there. It never goes down, and that causes more inflation. Somewhat, right? Um, I can't read that. Oh, buying the price one. That's true. That's true. Stop buying crap like iPhones and stuff because they make them for pennies on the dollar. Stop buying them. They'll drop to like $100. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's the dollar needs to be stronger, and it's going to take a while for it to get back to that strength it was even 10 years ago because they printed so much of it. They printed, I think it's 26 trillion in circulation now after 2020 because they printed $20 trillion, and that just basically made the dollar go from a dollar to like 15 cents. Uh,
Bouge.
Well, of course they nowadays. I mean, there's a lot involved with that too. We used to have the gold standard, and they're still trying. We don't have the gold standard anymore. They're trying to um, pie it, I guess you want to say, but we have a trade standard now
mm,
that nobody wants to admit.
yep.
So everything going along nowadays, our country is whatever 30 something trillion dollars in debt, and we don't have 30 something trillion dollars worth of gold to back it up. So in most countries, modern countries, I should say, don't. But we have resources. Once our resources ran out, as far as loan wise, like say, collateral, right? So our gold is collateral for the debt. In basically, it boils down to that. Our resources became collateral as well, which is why we sent billions of gallons of oil back in the early 2000s to the Middle East, right? But the problem with that is we've ran out of collateral. So now it's IOUs, and China is the biggest loan officer in the world,
Hmm.
and we owe China more than we owe anybody. All right, which is why the imports and everything else, So it's a big complex system how they're doing it, and we're not in charge of it, and we don't have much knowledge of it. It's all done way on top behind closed doors, way above our pay grades,
Yeah.
and it's something they can't fix. You
Yeah, but
can't fix it. It's too far gone.
having manufacturing here in the U.S. is basically like having a job. So it's like the U.S. having a job and being able to pay its debts, right? The U.S. doesn't manufacture hardly anything, so it can't pay its debts. So that's why he's trying to do these tariffs to force manufacturing to come back, so we can pay some of this back, so we can get back to the gold standard or whatever worked better. And they are fighting it tooth and nail, and it's all
Yeah, because
because
most of
they
them,
can't. Oh, go ahead.
I think most of them have some type of stock and investment or deals, and all this other undercut stuff, and it's
Yes.
going to you know dig into their pockets, I guess. So
Yeah. Well, it's because, okay, so let's say Apple, I'll use them as an example again. Uh, they make each iPhone cost them to manufacture in China, let's say $30. Um, the tariffs on it are, let's say the tariffs are 25%, right? So that's going to be $2.50. It's going to be about $750 more per iPhone. So instead of $30, it's going to be $37. Then they import it and they sell it to the consumer for 1,200 bucks. So do you think that the consumer should eat that $7.50 as a multiplicative, not as just the $7.50, but now that the consumer, instead of paying $1,200 for their iPhone, they're going to have to pay 25% more. So they're going to pay what, 200, working the math, $275 more. So they're going to pay $14.75 now because they have to be charged $7.50 more for each iPhone. That is what they're complaining about. That because they're going to have to pay these percentage of tariffs to bring in their cheap, cheap, cheap items, they're going to pass that on to you. And instead of eating that little tiny bit of upscaled price, they're going to pass it on to you, like you're going to have to pay 25% more for each item. That is how the tariffs work, but these people are acting like everything in the store has to go up 25%. That's not how it works. They don't pay 25%, they pay 25% more, but it's not a fair thing to charge the consumer another 25% more than they're already paying, because they're already paying 10,000% more than it costs them to make.
my opinion, if and I had a small business at one time. I ran a martial arts gym. I owned a martial arts gym at one time, but I have a little tiny bit of exposure to business. If every major corporation, if every business ran their business like a small business, we wouldn't have a lot of the economic problems we have right now. And
Yep.
by saying that is this, um, population growth or demand growth, whatever you want to call it. If I'm if I have a business making, I don't know, selling watermelons, and say something simple like that, right? Some farm, and I got 10 acres, and I'm selling them for a little side business. I'm selling them $5 a piece, and then everybody likes my watermelons, and I don't have enough watermelons to supply to everybody that wants them. So what I'm going to do is go purchase some more land, and I'm going to plant some more watermelons, right? That
Yeah.
costs me more.
'Cause everyone likes your
I should
melon.
still be selling those watermelons at $5 a piece though. And what the businesses are doing is like, well, if I have to spend all this extra money to make more product to sell it, I'm gonna put my prices up to recover what I have lost.
Yes.
And what they don't realize is it's because of greed. So
Yep.
no, you're going to recover the money that you spent on the extra land and labor and whatever else it involves over time because you're going to
Hmm.
sell more watermelons because now you have one more to sell. But the problem is they want to make that money recover it faster, so they raise the prices up,
Yeah.
and they continue doing that, right?
Yeah.
And now you have watermelons at $20 a piece right now on the side of the road for these farmers selling. When I remember buying them for $3 a piece, not that long ago, right?
Hmm.
But supply and demand, cell phones too,
Yeah.
anything, shoes, whatever. If something costs and it gets popular and the more people want it, the more they got to sell. That's more machinery, more workers, more everything they got to do. Well, that should be on you as the business owner.
Yep.
If you want to sell more and make more money, then you have to spend the money to do it. Otherwise, just don't meet your quota.
Yep.
You don't meet your consumers or your customers' demands. Say, well, look, we can only sell 1,000 watermelons a month. I can't make any more.
Hmm.
Well, then settle for that 1,000 watermelons a month. You just never won't. You just won't make more money. You'll have that same amount all the time. But they were like, I'm greedy. I'm greedy. So they want more. If I sell more, I make more money. You know. And then they go and they
Yeah.
dig in their savings and I need my savings back. So I'm a $7 a watermelon now to recover it. And that's what happens, and it blows out of proportion. And we just have no choice but to keep buying the things that we need, instead of fighting it.
Yeah.
It's greed. Greed's the biggest thing.
The
Yeah, I don't
problem
want to.
too is that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
I don't want to change the topic right away, but yeah, we're talking about money, but I wanted to kind of shift into, like more of the military aspects. Um, I know we were talking about, society, but I wanted to touch on like the new night vision goggles. Have you seen those, Booge? The new
Those.
ones that are out now for the
Yeah.
military.
Mhm.
How much are they?
You can see more than just it's more
Oh
than just
man,
IR and stuff. You can see.
I'm gonna show you right quick. So
I bet you they're made in China.
I doubt it.
optics. That capability makes it possible for a soldier to detect and even fire on a target around an obstacle with limited exposure to the enemy.
That's not it. That's it.
Oh yeah.
In what is called a Reliability Growth Test, or RGT, the first of three planned for the ENVGP system, soldiers
That right there is the new night vision.
And ENVGB just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, right. Well, I know Booge wanted to talk a little more about the military, so I kind of wanted to bring, I didn't want to kind of,
Yeah. No.
you
No.
know,
No. No.
interrupt, but I wanted to kind of shift our topics, you know. Um,
Just remind me about
uh,
the education. I was there was a thing I was gonna say about it later on. Whenever you're done. I don't know where you went. You said military, and
and he
I
ran.
think he went to get his
No,
gun.
he's going to get his goggles.
Yeah, he might have. MVGs.
Probably.
I have. I got some night vision ones. They're the ones I got with Call of Duty back in the day with the $250 edition.
I tell you what, I'd like to get my hands on the new technology now. When they do the live night fire,
Mm-hmm.
it looks awesome.
Now it looks like it's showing the light itself actually reflecting off the surfaces like a halo, instead of just upping the brightness. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like it's showing the actual surface that it's being reflected off of, instead of just the light itself, or the what do they call it, the red
Oh, we
wave
figured you'd come back with
infrared.
yours on. No.
Uh, I had
We
to
figured you'd come
take
back
my
with your
dogs
night vision.
outside. I have some. I got three different kinds.
No, but that new night vision's pretty badass. But let's see. Yeah, there's a big difference between, back when you first started the military until now. With I know even when I was getting out, uh, one of the big reasons, I tell you what got me out the fastest was when I got orders for Washington D.C. That being too political, kind of helped me decide I was done. Now, if I would have got sent to a line unit, I'd been probably in better shape. So,
So
but
what is DC? Explain that.
what, Washington D.C.?
Yeah, what were they sending you there for? Like, there's a base there.
So,
Is there?
Well, being that I'm was in the medical field, I was at Walter Reed, so pretty much it was just a hospital. But mainly, you had all these full bird colonels, or you had like generals that would pop in and out. I mean,
That's
this
where all the
place
big
was
shots
like
are at.
more political. Like it was all about being political and not enough about being Army. I think we
That's
lost you
stressful as
again,
heck,
Booge.
too.
Think we lost Booge again.
I think so. That or he's really good at staying still.
Yeah.
He's trying to make us think he's not
Oh.
there.
Lost him.
I bet he just has that little circle thing on.
He said he was freezing because he thought Static's vision relied mainly on movement.
It does.
We got to get him some better internet.
No, I asked that because I didn't know if it was like I don't know much about that, so I was wondering if it was a base or the reason why. So it's
Well-
basically all the high ups are there and they're
I
sniffing
mean,
their own
you
farts. kind of
have,
thing.
lower enlisted, but mainly in the D.C. area, you have, a lot of people from the Pentagon that comes by. You have, in Virginia, you have Langley, which,
Mm.
let's see.
It's one of the oldest.
got
bases
booted
or
again.
something. That the political stuff, like you're saying, that's stressful as heck. Dealing with that. Like I know, not military wise. I don't know military wise, but I do know. Where I worked at was federal, and it was just like it wasn't stressful. The job, it was stressful. The people that you dealt with.
I would say, being at Walter Reed, I would say they wasn't worried about taking care of the soldiers. They were worried about themselves, what they looked like in front of other people. Like, say, anybody that's ever been to a line unit knows that you're watching each other's back. You're there for each other. And then when it comes down to being stationed at, somewhere like a Walter Reed or something like that, then
It's cut.
you're for yourself. You're not, you only have yourself because somebody's looking for their career and they're ready to stab you in the back on the way up.
Yeah.
So,
And everybody's nose is brown as can be.
yeah.
I know.
So, what did you
I
do
know
in the
that
military?
What is
I'm
it?
sorry, Sid.
What did you do in the military, Doc?
I was actually what they call a wizard, which is a mental health specialist. I know, surprising, huh? Takes one to know one.
They give you the cape and the staff and the long beard too.
Well, see, our
Huge
training was actually longer than a 68 whiskey, which is a combat medic. So combat medic, me and my buddy, we went to Fort Benning together. He went to 68 whiskey which is combat medic. I went to mental health, psychology training, which was like way longer than his training. And like he was like making fun of me because I was still there at San Antonio, but no, it was pretty good because you got to be able to deal with soldiers that were, I wouldn't say good, but you learned how to deal with soldiers that were suicidal or, they were having family issues or on deployment or coming back from deployment, pre-brief, debrief, stuff like that.
So did it seem like they were really concerned about the soldiers' mental health at that point, or?
I would say a lot of the psychologists are not, unless they were prior military, they did not know how to handle a soldier. I'm gonna tell you right now. All
They
right,
didn't
so
experience it.
yeah, that saying you would have to walk in their shoes, so to speak. Yeah, a lot of them did not walk in those shoes, and they thought they could.
Were a lot of them women?
Yeah, there was.
Okay.
I think we had one male doctor, and he was a
Not saying anything
retired
bad about
Marine.
women.
No,
Yep.
no. But
It's just that I say that because I noticed there's a lot of female psychologists, even where I worked. A lot, like there was one male to like 4 female psychologists.
yeah,
It's just a field that they get into a lot, and unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately, women don't see active combat much. At least they didn't. So I could see where that would be a problem.
That's something I noticed. When I was looking at getting help for some of my issues, is they kept sending me to civilian doctors, and none of them had served, none of them had ever been to combat. So when I tell them about some of the situations, they just, okay. You don't have PTSD. There's nothing wrong with you.
yeah.
Like-
They don't know. They don't know.
Well, the other thing too is a lot of the doctors that we have now don't care. So it's hard to find good ones anymore.
Yeah, most definitely. Even in the VA system, it's. I could tell you right now, even today, like I go to the VA, and I have a doctor that doesn't even look at me, talks from the side of her face, and is freaking. What do you call? I wouldn't. She's rude as shit. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. Like, I don't know. She's. I don't want to go as far as saying it's a race thing, but I wouldn't put it past. Okay, because the way she treats me is like I'm so close to finding a new doctor. It's pretty crazy. So, and Static, you know Pocahontas. So, the doctor told her to be quiet when she like something I couldn't remember. Told her to be quiet, and she was asking me, and I was like trying to answer the question that I was like trying to remember, and boy, she got up and walked out.
That's half the reason we started Kindred Vets, because unless you've been there, done that, you don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
It
gonna assume.
It was
I don't know
Booge
what
that
it's like.
they told me, no, you do have PTSD. This is who you need to see. This is who you need to talk to. This is how you get help for it. Because every doctor I went to said, no, it's not PTSD. It's all just in your head. Okay, cool. And when I talked to Booge about it, he goes, no, you do have it. You've got the same issues I've got. Not, granted, mine aren't on the same extreme that Booge's are, but I do have a lot of the same.
Yeah, speaking to another, another brother, or sister that served, y'all can, find common ground. But when it comes to a civilian that has been trained in college or, only knows other civilians, is when, um, they have no experience in trying to treat a soldier. So being a soldier and and you can be trained to go to war, but they would never train anyone to re-enter society. I think that's our downfall. That's our military's downfall.
And a lot of do you find that a lot of the ones that aren't or haven't seen combat and stuff just on top of not experiencing that, did they just not have empathy? Period.
I, I say that they probably hear so much of civilian bullshit that they don't give a shit about soldier soldiers issues, or they think they're just saying something. Here, I mean, what I've noticed lately is a lot of civilian doctors think that you're just med seeking, or some kind of BS that now maybe they do have some guys that come in there med seeking, but not all of them. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's different. You have to treat them that way. Some everybody has different types of issues.
Yeah, the doctors are pressured so much right now. They're scared to do anything.
Welcome back, Booge. How was that shit? No.
It, it got booted again. What I missed?
We were talking about
Wizards.
like mental health and like as a soldier compared to like having a civilian doctor versus having an ex-military doctor that's in that field is totally different. So like back when I was in, I had a retired Marine doctor that was a psychologist that was so much more beneficial than a civilian doctor as a psychologist. Um, we were just talking about the different aspects and how we're treated, like soldiers are treated when they get out. So you're treated like you're trained to go to war, but when you come back, you are there's no kind of treatment. There's no like what do you call
Reintegration.
yeah, reintegration to society. They just pretty much you're done, and here you go, you're out. Here's your paper. Here's your DD 214, or here's your med board.
I think it was times have changed, things have changed, society's changed. Um, you know, there's people that can kill people in war, murders, whatnot, and it will never affect them, right? And it's not because they're bad people; it's because of their culture. So, if you're living in an environment where you know you're constantly fighting wars, it's been like that for centuries, whatnot, even thousands of years, or just whatever, you can go to war and not think twice about it. And modern countries that are not third world, like the United States, we're not we don't live like that here, right? It's getting like that in some places, obviously, but we don't want to live
Yeah,
like that. So our soldiers coming back from wars, even way back, they're not accustomed to seeing killings. They're not accustomed to having to shoot someone or kill someone. It's not part of the. It's not part of who we are as a society. And then he sends you somewhere, and then you go and you do it. The mental health portion, I believe, is a twofold thing. Somebody said the other day, or a while back, is talking, well, why all these old World War II vets and stuff like that, and why they're not out here, oh, PTSD and blah blah blah. They were kind of putting down on soldiers with PTSD. You know, oh, because you saw somebody get killed, you was in fear for your life on a base camp, that a mortar shell hit 300 yards from you. You thought you was gonna die, so all of a sudden now you need a thumb in your mouth and a fucking blankie and a check, and that's the way they feel about it, right?
Mm.
But you gotta think about the way people think today. We're a lot more sensitive than we used to be because we're not raised to be men anymore. We're not raised to be brawn. We're not raised to be mentally tough as we used to be 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 years ago and plus. So we're not accustomed to that. Okay. Um,
Most
that's just
people
one
don't
way
even hunt
I
their
feel
own
about it.
food.
Yeah, they can't even hunt their own food. And we got people nowadays that cry when you smash a bug at the gas station. And why'd you kill that bug, that poor innocent bug? And they go get a check for it because, but the thing is though, PTSD is real. And I'm going to more focus on the war aspect of PTSD, right? There's all kind of different levels to it. There's different levels of war PTSD as well. Some of us go through things that others didn't, and some of us go through more things or didn't go through some things that others did. And it's going to affect you mentally based on who you are as a person, different than it would affect someone else, based on how you was raised, the environment you lived in, and the type of person and your character that is who you are to begin with, right? Um, do I think that the mental health is being washed, so to speak? Just like everybody gets an award type of thing, if you want to call it. Yeah, because I know too many soldiers, and I've sat in, which is why I don't go to the circle jerk fucking things anymore. The VA back in the day wanted, they had, even today they want you to go join a group. You sit in a room with a psychiatrist and a circle of veterans, and everybody tells a story, and we are not the same in that room. You know, there's a private that got medically discharged who's fully retired as a private from boot camp because he was not accustomed to being yelled at and he has PTSD. He can't sleep because every time he closes his eyes, he sees a knife hand and drill sergeant in his face. So that mentally fucked him up. So he gets a check for the rest of his life. And then you got someone sitting in the room that's watched his fellow people die, who've made other people die. We're not the same. So their mental, their program for mental health is fucking retarded. You know, some things you need to suck it the fuck up and be a man. But like I said, we are a woman, right? And that's a whole different story. But we, our society has been indoctrinated to become weaker mentally than we were in the past, which is why we have more PTSD. Someone tried to say, no, we have more cases of PTSD now because of the 20 something years of war that we was in. No, you're gonna have more PTSD as percentage every time you have a war, right? But look who's coming back with PTSD. People that came back with PTSD a long time ago came back because they experienced some traumatic shit. People coming back now are not experiencing nothing traumatic, but they are getting PTSD because we're just weak now, in my opinion. Society for most of us, not all, but we still have pockets of people in places where we're still just like our grandfathers were. Depends on how you was raised, But I think we have people who in 1980s, watching a movie or a show or even before, people got shot. You didn't even see blood or a bullet hole. They would just do some overacting, grabbing their chest or stomach, and they'd fall down and take forever to die and stuff like that. And we were traumatized by that. Like, oh man, Lone Ranger just got shot. Nowadays, I mean, you can play video games, let alone watch TV that look realistic, and you can actually see blood and guts and everything else. And it's desensitizing to some people, right? So a lot of you gamers out there that are into that type of games go to war and they don't come back with PTSD if they go out and experience that because their mind has been indoctrinated and trained, you know. But you are absolutely right though about coming home from the military. It's not just about coming home from war either. The military has failed us coming back from the war. The military now, especially in the army, that's because I was in the army, so I can only speak in the army. But I can tell you, my son was in the military. He was also in the army, and I still have people in contact with me that were my soldiers back in the day. Some are retired now, some are in high positions and stuff. And the culture of the military changed. It's got a lot easier. I don't care what anybody says. They can say, "Oh, you're just an old, you old guys. Y'all just think because we're young." It's the truth. We are not the men that our fathers were. Our fathers were not the men that our grandfathers were. Right? There's a certain generation where we started becoming pussies. Period. We're weaker than our grandfathers. Right? So mentally. So at some point we were men until recent history. The military changed, training changed. It's a lot easier. Um, we're sensitive to things now that wouldn't. Drill sergeants and NCOs can't put their hands on you anymore without getting in trouble. And everybody's like, well, I'll whip somebody's ass. You ain't whipping shit. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So you might think that you're a badass little motherfucker because you fucking played a game or you want to fucking fight in third grade, and you might be bigger and badder than the sergeant that's going to try to whip your ass because you're a piece of shit, and you might win that fight. But you're not going to win the fight that's coming to you because there's going to be a few others that's going to grab you, and you're only as bad as you are, right? And you can't beat everybody. And so if they would bring that kind of shit back, we would have a stronger military soldier, for one, right? If they bring the training to make it the standards high, like they used to be, we'd have a better fighting force and a better trained fighting force and a more elite fighting force than we have now. You got people walking around right now that have zero training, they're active duty military. They go to the range once a year and they barely qualify. And if they don't qualify and they're in good with their NCOs, they go ahead and pencil with their scores to keep them in the military for retention purposes. That kind of shit.
Mm.
Um, the discipline, you know, I don't like being yelled at. "Oh, you can tell me what to do without cursing at me and belittle me. No, fuck you. Get the fuck out the military if that bothers you, you bitch. Because the thing is, you joined the military. You volunteered to say, I'm going to be government property. I'm going to be a fucking soldier. If you want to be a crying ass fucking civilian and be a bitch, then don't join an organization that requires you not to be one. Right? So go work at McDonald's and do whatever fuck you got to do and be that bitch the rest of your life. But when you join a military, regardless of what your MOS is, you're joining an organization that protects this country, that protects the world, that goes in, and you're supposed to be a warrior. You can't be a warrior by being a bitch, and that's just my opinion. All right, but it's an opinion that has worked for a very long time, and it's not working anymore. When
As
they
far as
did away with
reintegration,
the shining of the boots, good
oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you about the reintegration before you got too far. What Bobby said
reintegration
about
is
helping
it's
them to
absolutely
reintegrate. Well, what do you think that needs to change to help soldiers to reintegrate? What specifically do you see that needs to be done?
they need to have better programs, and they need to create one. I should say, better. They just need to create one. So in the military, there's different branches. Different branches have different standards. Every MOS is different. So they can't treat every soldier the same way. Okay. So not every soldier or airman or marine or where the fuck the Navy call them sailors, they they don't we don't all come out the same. Just because I was in the army doesn't mean everybody in the army is going to come out the same way I did. So there there needs to be a experience oriented program. So different levels of the programs. So no matter what your experience was, or your MOS was, whatnot, they're gonna base you getting out of the military of what did you do and what did you experience, what type of units were you in, what were you exposed to, uh, and then use that program, tailored program for individuals to process them out of the military over a period of time. All right. I don't think that a person should be training, let's just say the most elite forces out there, right? Any combat arms force that trains to kill people and shit like that. If you're getting out of the military, there should be a time period, whatever it is, right? That you're not doing that job, that you're not training to do that. that should not being told to sing cadence about killing people and blowing up babies and everything else, and being a hardcore lean green fight machine and bodies, bodies, bodies. There should be a time where you're not involved in that, so and involved in something else while you're getting ready to get out to
Yeah,
kind of
that's what I wanted
bring
to
you out
focus
of
on,
that.
was the steps to help reintegration. I'm not military. I don't know, what all you go through and everything. But I was wondering is what steps would be best to you, like that, like you just said, to help to reintegrate, and what systems you see now that are currently in place that need to do better, or that could be put in place of those systems.
When I got out in December of '06. The only program they had was a program. I don't know what the acronym means, but it was called ACAP, and it was basically some retired command sergeant major that's been out for a while. Has got a gut hanging over his knees, and he gave you a week to say, "Hey, you're getting out of the military. I'm gonna teach you how to Google jobs. I'm gonna teach you how to, do something small like a checkbook budgeting, maybe a little budgeting class. Somebody come in and talk to you about that. Build a resume, stuff like that. That just got you prepared to get a job and to you know, so you won't be homeless when you got out of the military. There's no they At the time they had nothing to say. Here's how you act in the civilian world versus how you acted or had to act in the army. You know what I'm saying? Since then, because of the wars, they offer, I should say, it's not mandatory. It's not part of the out processing. They offer mental health assistance, and they'll give you, so you take a mental evaluation before you're getting out now, right?
Mm.
If they feel that you have some issues, well, then you see a psychiatrist, and they work on that while, before you get out. But it's very minimal, and most of that is just some basic. Here you go, check the blocks. By the way, when you get out, you can go to the VA and continue your treatment, right? That's
Yeah.
all they have nowadays. And like I said, they need to have in individual based programs a checklist of everybody's getting out. You know, all four of us may be getting out of the military at the same time, right? We should all four of us have this checklist that we fill out to say yes or no. Do you feel this way? Have you experienced that? Whatever your experiences was and how you feel right now in the whole 9 yards. A psychological evaluation, right? And then they base that treatment off off of what you've put down, and then you go through that treatment, and then they to be able to be integrated back into society. They don't have that.
Right.
We have aftercare in the military. It's you know we the military doesn't feel like they've got what they wanted out of right, or you've got what you wanted out of them. It's a voluntary thing. Once you're done, you're done. So go to the VA and get your help, and that's the way they're filling it off now. Is just seeking outside assistance after we get out of the military, and most of the time it's not fast enough, depending on the person.
Booge, I don't know about you, but my experience, which is a little different than y'all's, is when I go to a VA, I don't feel welcome, always. It seems like almost every person that works at the VA is there to collect a check, and that, um, like when I show up, it's let's hurry up and get you in and out. Um, like I was telling Static before, like when you got kicked, I go to my appointment. My doctor doesn't even look at me, talks to me from the side of their face, and you know, like I feel that, and I can only imagine what other soldiers that go to the VA, that may have actual more dire issues than me, because there are. And you have this doctor that has no care in the world that, and there's multiple ones, not just Like there's multiple ones. It's hard to find a good doctor at the VA. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been to the VA about a year after I got out of the military. I started going to the VA in 2008. Um, had horrible experiences at first, right? I was put into a color team, it was like orange team or some shit at Alexandria VA, or Pineville, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it was basically check the blocks, just like you said. They didn't care what the fuck you had going on. They didn't really talk to you, and you show up for a 0800 appointment, and you don't get to that appointment until $1,500, right? And it's like it's almost like they had a protocol to try to make it as miserable as possible for you, to
Yep.
piss you off, to deter you from coming back to the VA,
That's what it
right?
seems like.
Yeah.
And then once they found out who I was, because of some, I had to go in there one day and show myself, right? Had to act an ass a little bit. And once they put my records, they was like, "Oh, we need to move you somewhere else." So I went into the post deployment OEF OIF specialty team, and it's been gravy ever since. Now when I go up, they know who I am. They know how they need to deal with me, and I'm treated a lot better. I feel welcomed there, right? So, and unfortunately, not every soldier is going to be able to, not every veteran is going to be able to experience that because, like I said, not every veteran is the same. So it all depends on what you did in the military and a whole 9 yards and the different levels of, um, you know, connected service disability or whatnot. So the VA sucks, but that's what we have. I mean, I say the VA sucks. The VA doesn't really suck anymore compared to what it used to,
Excuse
you know. But it's a lot better than it used to be. But it's still nowhere near where it needs to be at all by any means,
Yeah.
right? And our soldiers, our military veterans, no matter what they did in the military, um, joined, volunteered to do a job, and they did things that only 1%, or actually less than 1% of the population would do. And you signed that dotted line knowing that you belong to the military, that you are property, and that you wrote a blank check for your life to defend. This will defend, right,
Yeah.
until you got out of the military. And that alone itself should say, hey, this person said, I'm willing to give my life for this country or for the cause of my commander in chief. He or she deserves the top notch medical they can possibly get, and not just, I call it welfare medical. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
And those kind of experiences don't help to garner more people wanting to go into the military. You know,
you know,
if people go in knowing that they're just gonna treat you like crap coming out, or throw you away, who wants to go do that? You're willing to be honorable and do those kind of things that sacrifice your life for the country, and then they do that crap to you. That's not going to make anyone ingratiate themselves to want to be in those services.
there's a huge spectrum of things, but I used to I used to ask my soldiers when I got new soldier in. My first question for them was, "Why did you join the army?" All right, because I wanted to find out what I'm dealing with. So, were you just some douchebag that said, "Man, look, my life was just going to shit. I didn't know what else to do. I was a lazy motherfucker," and I said, "I need a job, and I know I can't get fired, so I joined them. I joined them, right?" Or were you one of the guys that said, "Oh, I just joined for college," right? Or were you one of the guys that said, "I wanted to join the army or the military because I want to be a fucking soldier, right? I want to be a warrior of some sort in any capacity, right?" Those are normally the best people to be in the military. Somebody that joined the military for the reason that we have a military. You join a motorcycle club because you want to ride motorcycles.
Yep.
you want to ride around a truck. You know, you join a bingo game because you like playing bingo. So the thing is, you join baseball because you want to play the fucking game. Nobody wants to sit in the benches and I'll just be the water boy because I don't want to do nothing, right? I joined the military because I watched GI Joe growing up, and that's what I wanted to be. So that's what I did. So it just depends on the person, you know. And that not I'm and you know what? Not every veteran comes out of the military. That's, in my opinion, as a person, that's worthy of anything. Some people, they get in because you can't get fired, right? Unless you really screw up. They get in to do the bare minimum. What do I have to do to pass anything? What time do I have to show up without getting in trouble? How many push-ups, sit-ups I have to do without failing? You know, what's the minimum that I have to do to keep me out of trouble? And then they buy their time and they get what they want out of the military and they come out. And the whole time they're in there, like, fuck the army. I don't want, they don't like the military. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like shining my boots. All this other shit, right? You just basically spend 4 years of being a piece of shit on a free ride, you know, instead of
Yeah.
taking what's being taught to you and the environment that you're in and growing as a man or a woman and becoming a better person. So not every veteran comes out, better, I should say. I'm not gonna say no veteran is worthy. That is just not a veteran. Even the shitbags are still worthy because they still volunteered and went, right? So they are at minimum worthy of being, you know, a veteran and appreciated. But what did you do for the army?
Yeah.
What did you get out of it? Same thing with
Jim,
my motorcycle club.
But
We had a meeting a few months ago, and I asked them, look in the mirror and tell me and ask yourself, what are you doing for the club instead of what's the club doing for you? You know,
asking not
so
what
different people gonna have different experiences and come out with different characters and attitudes. You know, so it's just how it is.
Yeah, but it's got to be hard if you got a person like that and you do see combat to trust them to have your back. You know, those
Right.
type of people go in there and they don't think of combat situations and what's going to happen, right? I mean, have you seen that those type of people they usually
Talking about civilians.
No, I'm talking about the what he's talking about, the type of person that just wants a free ride, that goes into the military just
Oh, you
for
kind of know.
themselves.
Like you can weed them out. You can weed them out
Yeah.
right off.
But I'm
Like
saying if
I've
that
met a
type of
few
person,
dirt bags.
yeah, but if that type of person sees combat, you know, a real soldier is not going to trust that person to have their back,
Well,
right?
I can tell you, if he sees combat, he'll find some way to get out or get
Yeah.
out of there.
I've seen people come in the military that didn't want to be there, and they were shitbags, and they changed
Yeah,
because, for whatever reason, and they became some of the best soldiers and leaders you can possibly ever think of, but
Yeah.
they didn't start out that way, you know. And I've seen some come in gung ho and become shitbags and wind up getting out or getting kicked out or whatever. It's you get out of it what you put into it. That's my perspective on it. You get out of what you put into it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
if the Army's motto when I joined was be all you can be.
yeah,
So that's exactly what I tried to do. So if I tried my best and my best wasn't perfect, it was still better than most because I tried my very best, right?
Yeah.
So, and not to mention, speaking of combat, because I've been in combat quite a bit, and I will tell you this: my attention to detail, my dedication and loyalty to the military, and my attention to grasp knowledge and skill and physical fitness and ability definitely helped me in combat, 1000%. You know, when I shoot, I hit. So when I move fast. At least back then, if I knew something, I knew it because I trained in it and I learned it and I made sure that I understood it. So when I was out there and I had to call a non-line medevac, I didn't have to read a book or ask someone else, how do I call in this non-line medevac? How to give an ACE report. I knew when I put my sights on the enemy, he was going to die. I knew that if I had to lead my soldiers to a combat zone, I knew every single tactic, every drill that I replayed in my head and practice, and um, and paid attention to because I wanted to make sure that if I'm leading you into combat, if I'm leading you to a building that I know they got bad people and they're trying to kill us, I want to know what I'm doing, and I want my skills and ability to fight that war or that battle to be as on the top notch game as I possibly can. And I want my soldiers to be on top of their game the best they can too, because you don't want to half-ass anything because that's how people get killed that don't need to be killed. All right.
Yeah.
If you missing the target because you're only shooting 25 with the range every single time you go because you don't care, that's 40 minus 25, that's how many times you've missed. Now, can you imagine that you missing somebody that's shooting back at you, right? Or somebody that would have shot you,
Yeah.
or your buddy just got, sucking chest wound, and you don't know how to stop that bleeding. You don't know how to keep his lungs from getting too much blood in
Collapsing.
it because you didn't pay attention in first aid, or your convoy gets hit, you know, 507 maintenance, right? It remember that with just clinch and all that. So that happens. You don't have to be a combatant to see combat. It's gonna happen to you. So if you're not trained on it and your RTO, your radio guy gets killed, do you know how to work that single radio to call in for assistance? Do you know how to call for medevac? Do you know how to shift fire? And if your leader dies or gets incapacitated, can you step up and take his place and lead the rest of the soldiers out of that danger? Every soldier should feel like that. Every soldier should train like that, and they don't. And that's the problem because it's not forced anymore, you know. And the standards in the military needs to be a hell of a lot higher than I think the standards in the military should have been higher when I was in,
Did they
and they
train
were,
you, or you
even though
learned
they
that
were
on
pretty.
your own?
No, they trained me.
Okay.
They trained me, but I paid attention to training because I took it serious.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, man, I can't wait to get out of this fucking training. No, that's something they're gonna teach you. That's gonna benefit you in case we have to go to war. And what happened? We went to war, right? So pay attention, dude. Be the best you can. Absorb all the knowledge you got. Try to be the most physical shape you can be in. Have as much knowledge as possible. Shoot for 100% all the time because you don't know when that 100% is gonna come in handy. You
Yeah.
know. So if every soldier felt, if every soldier did that, we'd have a lot less dead soldiers. We'd have a lot more, wins on the battlefield. We'd have a lot. We have more better. We have better people coming out of the military too, because you learn so much in the military that helps you in the civilian world than just everyday things. I tell people all the time. Yes, did I go through combat? Yeah. Do I have some issues because of it? I do. Is my body kind of broken down from it? Yeah. Right. I'm injured and everything else too. But that's the best decision I ever made in my life was joining the military. 100%.
Yep.
You know.
Static, you're quiet over there.
Yeah, I keep my phone muted so you guys don't hear yourselves.
Had to lay down the headphones off.
I couldn't get them to connect to this.
Uh, well, yeah,
I
man.
believe that in some countries, you're forced to join the military. All right.
A lot of them.
We have babied our constitution so much. Oh, my constitutional rights. I get it, but if every able body, mentally and physically able body, would spend 2 years in the military of any branch, we'd have a way better society. If they rose the standards in our military to a warrior standard with discipline, knowledge, and everything else, and they forced every able and physically and mentally able body to join, we'd have a way better society.
100%. 100%. Yep. And you probably have a lot less crime, tell you the truth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That
I mean, I'm 48 years old and I still hold doors for people, I still say yes sir, yes ma'am, and and all that.
Mhm.
So that was
It
military that gave me that discipline.
seems we lost chivalry, and like that. The younger generation is like, I don't I don't want to say shit bags, but man, they're pretty damn close.
Well, they became selfish. Started with the me generation, and then it just got worse. And each successive generation started being more and more selfish. How it goes. But I wanted to
Some of
circle
that.
back. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I want to circle back to education because I had an idea for to help with the education system because I have a theory that each different not specifically different person, but maybe even different groups learn differently. And this one size fits all type of system we have right now is not really doing the job of helping everyone to rise to a same or similar level. So I don't understand why they don't give children, maybe not right as they go in, but it's especially later on, uh, aptitude tests or tests to determine how they learn, not just what they're learning, right? So it's just like with a dyslexic person, right? You can't just teach them the same way you teach everyone else. They don't learn that way. You have to teach them a specific way, and then they learn how to learn. And that's basically what school is you learn how to learn. But I think fundamentally, right at the beginning, right off Jump Street, we need to start doing aptitude tests or doing tests to determine, how does this child learn, and put the children who learn in similar ways in those groups. Like, you're in A class, B class, C class, D class. Put those children who learn in those ways in those classes, and that way everyone can, you know, have a chance at being a doctor or have a chance at being a lawyer, whatever they want to be. But it's you have to start early, and I think that would help with our education system right now, going forward, to do those type of things. And we could even institute AI, because AI can see the problems and can determine that stuff better than even we can, right? It can ask specific questions to the child and determine, well, does this child learn this way or this way, right? I just wonder what you thought about that. And I don't know, does the military do aptitude tests when you first join, something similar to that?
We
Has Fab.
you has Fab score. So you're in order to get in the military, you got to make like a 31 or something like that, 32 on the score out of a hundred, but it really only goes up to 99. But the higher the score, and then you have different topics within that ASVAB, um, where you can excel more in and than others, and that's how they help decide what job, give you a list of jobs to go for. So if you're really smart in
Oh.
computers, but you're stupid in mechanics, and
Hmm.
they're probably going to offer you jobs with computers instead of mechanics, right?
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So yeah, so you get a GT score, that goes up to 130, and then you got, you know, but so yeah, the Army does that, but it's easy because it's a one test that everybody gets, and there's no training afterwards. So to make a better score unless you want to, right? So uh, civilians though, going like school children, they don't have that. It's almost you know you can take a test in certain schools nowadays to be placed, in specific programs, advanced programs, and special ed and stuff like that. But every student can't. They don't have a way to at what age, at what grade do they say, hey, all right, now let's take an aptitude test to see how much you know, what do you know, how do you learn, what interests you more in the education field, stuff like that, and then make you go from there.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Now they did try to do something. So what government, in my opinion, what the government did some years ago was, instead of trying to address that, some kids are naturally smarter than others. Some kids are stronger at certain subjects than others. Blah blah blah. Everybody's an individual. They can't attack that program. I mean, they can't attack that issue because it would require a lot more teachers, a lot more training, and I understand that. So they come up with this No Child Left Behind program, but
Yeah.
they perversed it.
Hmm.
So No Child Left Behind was supposed to be a person can't learn. They it's not that they don't want to learn, they can't.
Yeah.
That's what it was for
They
those
made
people.
excuses. Yeah.
So now it's like, oh, so and so is not going to pass. We're going to feel sorry for him for whatever agenda reason it is and political reason it is, and we're going to go ahead and pass him. So I got to study my ass off to make the grade to pass, but someone else in the classroom doesn't. And it's not because he or she's retarded, mentally handicapped or whatever the case is. It's because they don't want to, right? They live a
Yeah.
different lifestyle on purpose differently than I do. So they don't sit there in class and pay attention. I ain't talking about people with ADHD and shit. I'm talking about a normal person. They don't care what the teacher's got to say. They don't go home and read and study the homework and do the homework and do all the stuff for the upcoming test on Friday. They'd rather be out running the streets and doing other things or playing games or whatever
Or
case they do. And then they
technology,
make bad
man.
grades. Yeah, technology.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh, well, he or she doesn't have the opportunity. Yes, the fuck you do. Yes, you do. We have nobody in this country legally that does not have the same opportunity as every other person in this country legally.
Yeah.
You know, and for an example, in the adult world, as a martial artist, I've mentored two people that I always use as an example. Not to mention the names on here, but I'll call them, you know, Bob and Bill. So, quick,
7 degree
quick
back
story.
black belt, by the way, fellas.
Yeah, I'm a 7th degree black belt somewhere up there. No, still,
In the dark.
but I just got promoted the other day. Um, so I met Bob one day on a bad call when I was working for the sheriff's office. Big dude, you know, beating up people, and he got some act right by me, and he was 17 years old. Instead of me putting him in jail, I gave him some physical act right and sent him on his way because I was like, I'm not gonna put this kid in jail if no one else wants to press charges on him and ruin this kid's life, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
He had never had somebody handle him the way I handled him. He was used to bullying everybody, right? And getting his weight. He's 6'3", 200 something pounds. He showed up at my martial arts gym and was like, I want to learn. And what I did for that guy was I mentored the shit out of him. I wouldn't go pick him up from his house on my way to my gym for class. You get there how the fuck you gonna get there. I made him walk, whether it was raining or not, because you got to show some dedication. Because I'm teaching you for free, because that was our agreement. I would teach you for free to get you out of the lifestyle that you're in,
Yeah.
and that worked for a little while. But as he became a man, right, he didn't do everything. I got him jobs. He wanted to get an education because he quit school in the 12th grade, by the way. So he quit school in the 12th grade. I got him set up with a free GED program. He didn't go, made an excuse why not to go. Every job that I got him jobs around so he can get out of the area he was in and do better for himself. He either got fired or quit every job that he was on. So fast forward to this guy who stuck with me for years in martial arts and never got promoted other than some like a mid-range belt because of his lack of participation, lack of uh, you know trying to be better than he was, right? And I don't give trophies out. Everybody gets a trophy. I believe you got to earn what the fuck you get, right?
Absolutely.
And I trained him for shit from 2000, I don't know, 10 or so, all the way to like 2020, 21.
Mhm.
Now he's a grown man. He's got children. He's with someone who has children. Blah blah blah. Like you're a man. You got a spouse. You got kids. It's time. So fast forward. I didn't give up on him. I just quit. I'm not gonna baby you anymore. So fast forward to Bill. So Bill comes in, and Bill happens to be from the exact same neighborhood, exact same household type situation, exact
Mhm.
same everything. Bill graduated high school, right? Uh, Bill come to me and said, "Hey, I want to learn. I want to be a fighter." He wanted to be an MMA fighter. I started mentoring him. Bill makes a lot of money right now living in Texas because Bill said, "I want to do better. I don't want to blame nobody else for what I can or cannot do." So he went to college. He went and got certifications. He went to jobs and performed well at those jobs for good resumes. And now he is working for Tesla in Texas, making a lot of money. All right.
Nice.
He has a big, nice house and he has brand new vehicles and everything. So my thing was this: if we both come from the same type of family in the same neighborhood, we live the same culture, the same lifestyle, why is one exceeding and the other one isn't? And by the way, they both came from single parent households. So what was the difference? The difference was you as an individual.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing with school and education. If you don't have a physical, I mean, a mental handicap of learning, and you are a failure at school, unless some outside source is making you that way, like abuse and stuff like that, right? I'm talking about it's a normal. It's your fault. It's your
Yeah.
fault. You know.
But I think that
So
some children just learn different. Not saying that they're disabled per se. Just let's say, for instance, Chinese. Let's say it's a Chinese kid, right? And they learn, a lot of Chinese kids are bilingual, so they learn Chinese and English. And I have a theory that because they know Chinese, and Chinese they usually read the opposite direction of English. You know, English is left to right. Chinese they read right to left or top to bottom. That that in a way helps them to know math or learn math easier because of the way they read is from right to left, so they automatically do numbers from right to left as well, or something to that effect. So, let's say you have, like what I said, the test, and it tests children, and I know a lot of people have a problem with Common Core math, and yeah, I don't understand it either. But what if it does help a group of kids, and they are doing well with it? Well, then maybe we should use Common Core for just that group, and use something else for the other group, and that way you're not just helping one group by blanket covering everyone with freaking Common Core math, but you're helping everyone and in the individual ways that they do learn. Because I think different groups learn in different ways. Maybe from their culture or from a background, or maybe it's just biology, and we have never really targeted that. We've only just, in the U.S. at least, blanket covered everyone with the same thing. Well, in Japan that may work because everyone in school there is pretty much Japanese, but in the U.S. you have a large, subset of different groups, and it doesn't work for everyone. I mean, what do you think about that? Does that make sense?
and that's abnormal situations because they're not the normal citizen of the United States, right? They are they're not average, let's just say. So if you're coming from another country, if you're coming from a culture where you speak a different language, you have a whole different way, especially in academics of doing things and literature and whole nine yards, that's completely normal to not be able to succeed, uh, depending on the culture you come from. Because some cultures are they can come over here and excel better than 99% of Americans, but how are they also taught for generations in their education system and their households and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah,
But generally
the
speaking, as
adapt.
from an average person, I believe that if nothing's wrong with you from outside source or from a medical point of view, if you failed, it's your fault. right? For the most part.
I think Static
So
wants to
that
break this
pretty much
silence.
covers, yeah, that covers like the, you
I think
know,
that
that's why I
culture,
say nothing's wrong with you.
like he was saying, China and Japan. If you look at American culture versus Japanese or Chinese culture, what's pushed for children in these Asian countries versus the United States is totally different. Take TikTok, for example. TikTok in China, their algorithm pushes science, technology, into China. And all their videos on TikTok are kids selling in these areas. But if you look at TikTok stateside, what are the kids, pushing on TikTok here? It's how much can they shake their ass on TikTok, and how many views can they get for being lewd and other dumb shit. So I think the success slash failure is cultural.
Yeah.
When comparing it,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a large part of it. Like, there are studies that show two-parent households help in that respect, and not saying you can't if it's a single parent, like the Booge was saying, but it is easier with two-parent households to have a proper education and proper upbringing and all that. But maybe there is something we can offset that with, right? Like I was saying, with the way that child is taught. Maybe there is a way we could go about teaching children that's not a one size fits all thing, that can help them to achieve what other countries have done, like China. I know they're communist and they do things that we don't do here. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that just teaching the children how to learn in a one size fits all way, I don't think is working. Um, we need something to test aptitude and to find the faults before they're ingrained, basically. And I think AI could help with that in respect, not lean upon AI totally, but maybe use it to determine whether the child does have something that, like, let's say, dyslexia, or maybe they just don't learn in the way, like the Common Core way. Maybe they can't learn Common Core because they just don't grasp it. And we could use systems like that to catch it early, so that they're not dropping out at in the 11th grade or 12th grade because they're just tired of it, or not grasping it, or whatever.
I think the
Hmm.
academics, period, should be changed in schools, of what's taught in schools to begin with. Um, there's too much, so they're teaching our children at a young age the normal stuff, learn how to read and write, and plus all the other things too, right? That are basics. They're teaching the basics at a very young age. But as you progress through school, they teach you a bunch of shit that you don't really need unless you choose to go forward in life with something that pertains to it. So they're spending 13 years in school, kindergarten through 12th. Probably 80% of that is useless,
Yeah.
as far as just becoming a normal person. So I think when people, just me, I think that, I don't use much. There's a lot that I don't use, that I've never used in my lifetime, even going to college and being in the world, that was in my grade school. It was all a bunch of useless shit because I didn't, most of the sciences that I had in school, I don't use. I use small
Hmm.
science, that are basic everyday science thing, like making Kool-Aid and cooking and shit like that, ingredients. I'm not becoming a scientist. Now, if we move, so when kids reach a certain age and you start seeing what they're strong in and weak in, they should start focusing on their strengths, right? And they should be able to separate that and focus on their strengths, so that, because that's what's going to make them who they are when they get older, right? And give them something to look forward to. And they also need to be programs to where, in Job Corps, right? So the program is called Job Corps, and what Job Corps does is they'll send you to you take a placement test when you get there, all right? If you don't have a GED or a high school diploma, they send you a placement test. The highest grade you can make is 12.9, right? The lowest grade you can make is like kindergarten level. So you take a placement test, and each subject, you might be sixth grade in one subject, you might be in 11th grade another subject, hell, you might be in third grade another subject. But you're going to go to school at Job Corps and get taught and do better until you reach the 12.9, and then they send you get your GED, right? Public school should be something similar to that too. Not just like that, but something similar. So if I'm failing behind in something in school, there needs to be a way that the general education system can boost me up to catch me up instead of saying, well, go get a tutor, stay after school and, for an hour and do this or something else. There has to be something better. So
Yeah,
everybody should have
that's what I'm referring
the
to.
same.
It's so if you enter that situation you're talking about, right, and you're failing in a course, right, instead of just doing the tutor or telling the kid do this, do that, you institute a test to find out why they're not learning that subject correctly or why they're not retaining it, right? And then you can take steps to help them to retain the information that they're reading, because they don't just have homework, they go to class too, and if they're failing the test, they're probably not retaining what's given to them in that course that day as well. So
Right.
find out why. That's what I'm saying. Find out why, and then help that kid to either learn why he's not learning that properly, or help them to. And like, that's why I said at the beginning, school is mainly you learn a lot of crap you don't need, yes, but it's to help you to learn how to learn. It's to help your mind develop so it can retain the information, and to just leave a kid behind or to progress them without them learning anything just because you don't want to leave a kid behind, it doesn't help them. It actually harms them.
No.
So we need a
Yeah.
better system than
No.
that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of Japan, those children in Japan learn life skills and things in life that's not has nothing to do with school academics. They're being taught how to clean, they're being taught how to cook, first aid, how to balance checkbooks and budgets. They're being taught all the things that you as an adult are going to do as soon as you step off that school campus and become, you know, a, a lone member of society. You know, and we're not doing that here in the United States.
Nope.
You know,
No.
No, they should be
Um,
taught how to balance a checkbook. Seriously. When they get to
Right.
11th, 12th grade, they should know how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
guys, we've had some good topics tonight, but we have one that Static's going to have to be getting off here soon. We've reached 2 hours, 23 minutes, and I wish we could go on longer.
Hmm.
But anybody have any last comments before I make our exit?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Look, I for the guests and the watchers, the audience. I know y'all were looking forward to alien theories, ancient alien theories, human theories. But we've done well tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and if you're active duty military or a veteran, anywhere in the country, if you need to reach out to Kindred Vets, you can go ahead and message me. I'll point you in the right direction. There's the founder, co-founder right there. And we're always willing to help y'all out. We'll find you what you need. So,
You guys
oh
done?
God.
I'm getting
Hi.
hungry.
So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, and look for us on the future podcasts. And I want to thank the Booge, Static, Disease, And thank you for tuning in. Have a good night, guys.